Day, March 15th, 2018. Just got my little YouTube thing going here. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, so let's get on into it. Obviously, the big story happening right now, a horrible tragedy down at Florida International University near Miami, Florida. Apparently, a pedestrian bridge that was under construction has collapsed. Virtually the entire length of it, trapping cars underneath. Now, the bridge was not open, so there were no pedestrians on it, but apparently there's an unknown number of deaths until they can lift the debris and see how many cars are underneath there. And they were building the bridge along the side of the highway, and only last Saturday they picked it up with a crane, swung it on over and put it down, and they were still working on the bridge. It was supposed to be open first part of next year, and it just collapsed, and all the first responders are there, and the governor's going down there. Everyone's going on down there to make political hay from this, but it is a horrible, horrible tragedy. The pedestrian bridge weighed 950 tons, and obviously something went horribly wrong with the engineering, or maybe they made a mistake when they were trying to swing it out over the highway. Somebody needs to find out what happened to that. But it's another reminder that our infrastructure, even our new infrastructure, is not really up to par. And I remember when I was very, very young, my father got an engineering degree from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and he wound up in manufacturing and manufacturing consulting. But his secret dream all his life, he wanted to design and build a bridge. So bridges represented the pinnacle of engineering, and he wanted to do that, and he never got to do that. So I don't know who designed this bridge, but I can imagine they're in a lot of trouble right now. This kind of thing on a resume, it looks really, really bad. Now, I don't know about highway bridges or pedestrian bridges, but when I volunteered for the Railroad Museum in Washington State when we were living up there, I learned of an interesting tradition. Because the museum had added a bridge to this short section of rail line that they ran the tourist train on. And apparently the tradition, at least for a railway bridge engineer, is they stand underneath it the first time a train goes across that bridge. So that's a good way of incentivizing quality engineering and construction. But it's a horrible, horrible tragedy, and we got to find out what happened. And it's very, very, very sad here. They're getting ready to hold a news conference on it. Maybe they'll have some information about it then. All right, getting on into our political news here. Apparently, just after Rex Tillerson's firing, American diplomats around the globe were receiving guidance from Washington telling them not to post or retweet the statement from Undersecretary of State Steve Goldstein on how Tillerson was fired by President Trump. Apparently, some of these diplomats spoke to CNN about the guidance, basically just wanting to downplay it. Now, as you know, there was fake news put out that Donald Trump had fired Tillerson over Twitter. That turned out not to be true. Apparently, Tillerson was actually officially fired last Friday, and it was only announced on Tuesday. Now, as we mentioned yesterday, the fight to get confirmation for Mike Pompeo as the new Secretary of State and for Gina Haspel as the new head of the CIA is apt to be tumultuous. Rand Paul is out there saying that he is going to oppose it. He's going to do everything he can to block them. And Rand Paul is the first Republican to come out against these two nominations, which were announced by Trump on Tuesday. Last year, he was the only Republican to vote against Pompeo for CIA director, so he's taking a stand on this issue. Okay, let's see. Now, Germany has said that if Gina Haspel sets foot in Europe, she faces arrest because she was in charge of the torture centers in Iraq. That's war crimes. And there are groups that are trying to get arrest warrants for her from the International Criminal Court. And it's rather dissettling to find out how many of our top politicians, like Henry Kissinger, do have outstanding warrants in other parts of the world for crimes against humanity and war crimes. And I think it says a great deal about the true nature of the American government. Now, the New Yorker has come out with a puff piece on Christopher Steele. They're trying to polish his legend. Apparently, they titled the article, Christopher Steele, the man behind the Trump dossier, how the ex-spy tried to warn the world about Trump's ties to Russia. Very long, circuitous title. Was written by Jane Mayer. And the premise of the piece is namely that the Steele dossier implicates Trump and his associates in high crimes and misdemeanors, and it's basically accurate. And the New Yorker says it's accurate because they have sources they cannot identify, whose credibility is alleged to be unimpeachable, and so forth and so on. In other words, it's just another classic elaboration of the same corporate media trust us narrative. The corporate media is still out there peddling lies and saying, you should trust us. We're the corporate media. We wouldn't lie about things like that. Yeah, they do, and they have. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, the America First Media Group attorney, Ty Clevenger, has filed a lawsuit against the FBI and the Department of Justice over the Seth Rich files. This is going to kick over a hornet's nest, and basically they want all of the records that are involved in the case. Now, as you remember, Seth Rich was shot in the back near his home. It was claimed to have been an attempted robbery, but nothing was taken from his body. Still had his watch, his cell phone, and his wallet, and so it looks like a hit. And apparently this America First Media Group is also notifying the NSA they want all the communications between them and Congress concerning the discussions of Seth Rich. That would include communications with Julian Assange and Kim.com, who is also in support of this investigation. Now, possibly because of this lawsuit, the family of Seth Rich has come on out filing a lawsuit against Fox News, supposedly because coverage of the possibility that Seth Rich was the DNC leaker and was killed for that reason is causing them pain and distress and suffering and anguish. This is a continuation of this attempt to use lawfare to basically get around the First Amendment by saying you have a right to freedom of speech, but if I'm upset about it, I'm going to tie you up in court and bankrupt you with law fees. It's a very, very dangerous, dangerous precedent. And it's rather interesting. We're heading into campaign season, and we're seeing politicians around the country, and they're seizing on highly publicized episodes of conservatives faced with harassment and heckling on college campuses by responding with a wave of legislation supposedly aimed at preserving free speech for campus speakers. But at the same time, these same politicians are voting to penalize boycotts of Israel and even criticism of Israel. In other words, their attitude is you can have free speech all you want, just not about Israel. Well, that's not freedom of speech, that's permitted speech, and that's a dictatorship. Now, the government does not give us a right to freedom of speech. The Bill of Rights acknowledges that the government recognizes pre-existing natural rights. The right to freedom of speech, the right not to have a government-mandated official religion, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to privacy, the right to not have our property seized without just compensation by the government, and so forth and so on. And these rights are all under attack. They're finding ways to weasel around them. Now, basically, Alex Jones is basically saying that this new lawsuit against InfoWars is the Democrats' plan to end the First Amendment by intimidating everyone out of their right to free speech through an avalanche of lawsuits. We're going to sue you for your microaggression. You hurt our feelings. We're going to sue you for pain and distress. It is a rather ridiculous idea, but that seems to be what they're doing. Even the concept of political correctness was an attempt to trick us into suppressing our own freedom of speech out of fear that we might offend somebody somewhere. Well, you can't have freedom of speech and an offense-free environment. The two are mutually incompatible. when you are speaking your opinion freely, there's going to be somebody out there who's upset with you. So be upset. Be offended. Nothing's going to happen. Story coming out of the Organic Prepper, Modern Newspeak, how internet censors are making sure you hear only one side of the story. And it's basically talking about all these corporate social media companies that are basically trying to make sure that only the liberal side of the political debate is seen by ordinary people between now and November, and probably all the way to 2020. It's right out in the open. The censorship is now obvious to anybody who's taking a look at it. Now, interestingly enough, in addition to being America's most divisive president, it turns out that in his last year in office, Barack Obama spent $36.2 million on lawsuits to hide federal public records from the public. Remember when he came into office promising to be the most transparent administration in history? Quite the opposite. They were always hiding stuff from the American people. Always hiding stuff. All right, let's get into the war zones and talk about that. A lot of stuff going on. Apparently in northern Hama, the militants, terrorists, whatever you want to call them, tried an assault against the Syrian Arab army, and it basically didn't work. It ends in failure. The attack was dubbed the Wrath of Ghouta and aimed at assisting militants suffering setbacks in battle against the Syrian Arab army in the Damascus suburb of eastern Ghouta. By the evening, Wrath of Ghouta had turned out to be a failure for the so-called moderate opposition. The Syrian Arab army retook Kamaz and al-Hamayat and captured a battle tank and, according to pro-government sources, killed up to 50 militants. All right, we're going to grab ourselves a phone call. Dustin in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
And those militants won't be missed, Mike. Only by Saudi Arabia.
And the U.S.
And the U.S. And the U.K., too. Hey, Mike, what's your take on the bridge collapse in Florida? You know, construction companies, a lot of shady stuff going on. You think kickbacks?
I know there's a lot of that going on. We had, or rather the Homeowners Association where we live, paid a huge amount of money to a company to resurface our parking lot, and the stuff they came in with and did the job with was little more than glorified paint. And it's less than a year ago, and it's already cracking. There's already potholes. There's a lot of organized crime involved in some of these companies. Where they'll get somebody on the inside who makes sure the contract goes to an organized crime-connected company. They'll come on in with inferior materials. But something really bad did happen here, and they need to get to the bottom of it. Either the bridge was designed poorly, it used substandard materials, or it was somehow mishandled in the operation to move it from the construction site by the side of the road to sitting across the road. But something bad really happened, and we need to know what that is.
I know part of it was prefabricated, and do you know this bridge was made to take a Category 5 hurricane? Can you believe that?
Well, that's what they're claiming, but obviously that's not true. It wouldn't have survived a Cat 5.
Hey, Mike, I want to talk about Trump. Like, what's up with him now? I want all the Trump people who I voted for Trump. I want all the people who still love Trump. He just said Russia was behind. Like, he's either in the box or he's on. He's gone from us, Mike. Like, I just don't know at this point. You know.
Okay.
I think he's just either given in to them or whatever. But I was listening to Nigel Farage. Most of the people calling in don't believe this. Don't like Theresa May and don't believe the government.
No, if you go out to any of these articles in the British media where they're still allowing commenting, I mean, there's the obvious presence of paid shills to try and push the idea, but the overwhelming majority of people, to them, it's another dodgy dossier. It's another Saddam's nuclear weapons. The world is sick and tired of war. We've had 18 years of it, longer than World War I and World War II put together, and we want it to come to an end before we start seeing mushroom clouds all over the place.
And then one more thing is, did you hear a rumor about Kelly's going to be on his way out soon?
I've been hearing that rumor. I've also been hearing the rumor that McCabe is going to be fired before he can collect his retirement, but so far I'm not seeing anything actually happen.
Okay, Mike. Great. Have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. Now, the Syrian army has entered East Ghouta for the first time in years, and led by the elite Tiger forces, the Syrian Arab army was able to overpower the militants at the eastern axis of al-Hamouriya, paving the way for their units to enter the town. So basically, East Ghouta is over. They've won that one. Now, YouTube video we put on broadcast from Russia Today, where Nikki Haley is still out there saying that we have to strike the Syrian army. Assad is evil. Assad is gassing his own people, blah, 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 and saying they're ready to strike the Syrian army. Now, obviously, what's really going on is despite the huge amount of weaponry the U.S. is still sending to the rebels in Syria. We were talking about that the other day and how the Department of Defense is cooking the books to try and hide that. The U.S.-backed forces are losing, and they're losing badly. And the U.S. is desperate to find a reason to go on in and escalate the war, to send in the regular army. So Nikki Haley's up there threatening the UN, we got to do something about Syria or the U.S. will act unilaterally. And pretty much the rest of the UN is saying, go do what you're going to do. We don't want to have any part of it. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is saying that a new U.S. strike on the Syrian government will have serious consequences. So this thing is still heading to a collision course, direct conflict between U.S. and Russian forces. Once that happens, there'll be no taking it back. It'll just continue to spin out of control. Meanwhile, up in Great Britain, Theresa May and the establishment media are still pounding on this Salisbury spy case. And Great Britain and the United States at the United Nations Supreme Court, Security Council rather, I'm sorry, are still accusing Russia of being responsible. And, of course, pushing their agenda in Syria, saying, well, you know, if Russia did this to Great Britain, we've got to get them out of Syria. So the propaganda has just reached hysterical proportions. Now, France, Germany, the United States, and Great Britain have signed a joint statement saying that Salisbury's, the poisoning of ex-double agent Sergei Skripal, is a violation of Britain's sovereignty by Russia. They're now describing it as an offensive use of a chemical agent against the sovereign territory of Great Britain, for which they have no proof whatsoever. So they're setting Skripal up to be the new Archduke Ferdinand, if you remember your history of World War I. We're going to take a phone call. Mike in Fort Lauderdale, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I'm working down here in public safety. I just want to let you know I'm aware of the bridge situation. And, I guess Governor Scott's already meeting with the Democrats. They're going to, I guess, ban all bridges unless you're 21, and you have to wait 3 days before you can cross it.
Well, I thought the reason they put that bridge in there, they wanted to put the bridge in there, is apparently the students were having to wait a long time for the walk light on that particular intersection. That's funny. It's dark humor. But again, I do feel sorry for all those people who got caught when that thing came crashing down. And we need to know, we have a right to know what went wrong with this bridge. Bad engineering, substandard materials.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. The state of Florida, I guess, was one of the contractors on that. But I think it's the pod dispensers at the end of the bridge, the way to that.
Well, look, I'll tell you what, Mike, stay on the air, stay on the phone. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
For the past 14 years, it's been my privilege to host the National Intel Report on RBN, to offer a platform to interview exceptional guests, to provoke critical thought, and examine evidence, whether real, fake, or somewhere in between, and allow our audience to call in and participate with your input and questions in order to help us all reach an educated decision and arrive at our own truth. Our world has changed. It's now been turned on its head. Real is now considered fake, and mainstream fake is now pushed as real, rather than any clear thinking, consensus, or rationale.
Those few remaining beacons of light, the ones still shining through the mainstream media lies, propaganda, and deception, are being viciously attacked at every level through attempts at censorship, threatening advertisers, jailing hosts, and even killing journalists brave enough to speak the truth to you. We are in a war for our very freedom and existence, and through these despicable acts, freedom haters, collectivists, and communitarians have shown that they will stop at nothing to blot out these last few beacons of light. Truth is becoming increasingly more difficult to unmask, just as the term unmasking itself is spoken by those usually anonymous sources. They promote their lies, wishing to mask the truths by ignoring it, vilifying it, or conspiratorializing it into a black hole abyss.
Regrettably, RBN has reached the tipping point, and through internal audit and actuarial review, it has now been determined that the only life raft of survival to this network is to go the way of PBS, that being audience-supported. Like a cornered animal, the left with veracity is pulling out all the stops with every effort to effectively blacken our beacon forever. Help us, folks. Help yourselves. Don't let our light stop shining. Our motto has always been, because you can handle the truth. It's time to review your budget, folks. If you want the truth to keep flowing through RBN, go to republicbroadcasting.org and become a regular monthly donor of $30, $40, $50, or $100 or more a month, and ensure you keep the truth flowing.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Mike in Fort Lauderdale about this horrible tragedy with the bridge and looking at the available photographs. One end apparently is still up on its pedestal, but it looks to me like it may have collapsed starting right in the middle. We really don't know. We need a failure analysis before we know for sure. But something did go horribly wrong, and apparently somebody just sent me an article from the Miami Herald. Apparently the reason they built the pedestrian bridge is apparently that road is very dangerous, and there have been a lot of people killed on those crosswalks. So that's why they put that bridge up. But obviously, again, something went wrong.
Mike, if anything, I think there might have been some type of structural damage in the beginning when they set it up. It's a very busy intersection, but the governor is being briefed right now. Someone in the Democratic Party is telling him that it was bump fire sneakers and Tide Pod dispensers that may have resulted in this.
Well, somebody just sent me an email saying that remember, the bridge was still under construction, and apparently one of the cranes may have dropped a heavy load on the bridge when the crane cable snapped. Unfortunately, the link that they sent me goes to a page not found, so I can't get a confirmation on that particular aspect of it. But it was still under construction, and that could very easily have been the issue if there was a crane accident.
Yeah, it's very possible. And the area that the municipality that it's in is an area called Sweetwater. And Sweetwater is a very, very controversial area politically for shortcuts and all kinds of public corruption issues. And so I can only imagine there will be some connection to somebody overlooking something. But yeah, the governor's going to check it out and see if it was a bump fire or a pair of tennis shoes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the input here. And Mike, we're going to let you go. Thank you for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Alex in Florida. Aloha, Alex. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. Thank you for having me on. I just wanted to make a comment to the gentleman that called about Russia, and I'm not saying anything bad about his opinion, but I think we need to judge Trump according to his actions, not his words. Because Trump campaigned on basically not showing his cards. He kept on saying Obama will tell you what he's going to do, and he's going to do it. And he campaigned on basically having things secret until it's revealed. And I think that even like with North Korea and South Korea, I think Trump's doing a great job. I think he's doing a great job with Syria. And he's fighting some evil people that have been in charge of this country for a long time. Hillary Clinton and the Clintons and the Democratic Party are so corrupted and have poisoned so much of our government that we have a battle ahead of us. And we need to give Trump respect and go and just judge him on according to what he has accomplished.
Well, he has not accomplished much of what he promised he was going to accomplish. And I keep seeing all these stories about how his poll numbers are up, and I think they're up more out of a public disgust with the Democrats and Hillary than approval for Donald Trump, because he certainly did not keep his promise about pulling out of these military engagements. Neither did Obama. Hillary is still not in jail. She's touring India and having fun, except for when she falls downstairs. And I don't think the economy is doing as well as the government would like us to believe it does.
Well, I understand what you're saying. However, if he can get peace in North Korea, and he will have accomplished a lot, he has destroyed the media and their reputation, which is the biggest feat of any president I've ever witnessed during my lifetime. I mean, basically, we know there's a deep state.
Well, to be very honest, see, that happened. Hang on just a second. I'm just checking something out. Okay. Yeah, somebody sent me something about how a bridge in Atlanta collapsed, but that was like about a year ago. So getting on back to it, I'm very disappointed in Trump. I'm going to be very honest about that. And I don't think Trump himself brought down the corporate media. They did it to themselves. And they'd been doing it to themselves for a very long time. A lot of what we do here at whatreallyhappened.com is point out every time the media is caught with a deception, whether it's rigging side-mounted fuel tanks on trucks to explode, or faking food contamination at the Food Lion market chain. We've been pointing that out, and confidence in the corporate media has been in decline for quite some time. It's certainly accelerated during Trump's campaign, because the media just went so over the top that everybody was saying, this is just completely unreal. And the corporate media is still playing the same game. It's all one-sided news. Now they're actively trying to censor other points of view to keep pushing the deep state, Democrat, liberal war machine agenda. And people are noticing that. And polls are continuing to show trust and confidence in the corporate media is in the single digits. Same thing with the government as a whole. Probably a little better with Donald Trump. But now that we're starting to see a shakeup.
Visit our website.
Oh,
by going
sorry.
to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Hey, honey, I'm home. I grabbed a newspaper on the way home. Look at all the news today.
Don't you know that all you're going to get in the newspaper is propaganda, twisted news, and false information?
Honey, this is a national newspaper. It has to be true.
Ha! For some reason, the majority of the population believe anything the mainstream media tells them. The newspaper doesn't give out the important attention of what's happening to this country and news that affects our daily lives. Say, does that newspaper mention anything about the North American Union?
No, not that I can see.
I didn't think so. You need to go to www.newswithviews.com, where truth is more important than political correctness. That's www.newswithviews.com. Hey, don't throw that away. We can use that in the birdcage.
Okay, move over. Let me start reading newswithviews.com.
The truth? Read all about it at newswithviews.com. Newswithviews.com, where reality shatters illusion.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And I'm sorry I got cut off. I wasn't paying attention to the clock on that last one. Let me just say this. We're starting to see some serious shakeups in the White House. Like Rand Paul, I'm not thrilled with the people who are being brought on in. But maybe Trump is trying to take back control of his White House, and what that portends, we don't know. But it does seem that he's fully on board with escalating the war and confronting Russia, which is very, very dangerous. So we'll just see what happens about that. All right, we lost Alex, but we still have Roxanne in Texas. Aloha, Roxanne. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, I just tried to do this. I do research for Jim Fetzer and quite a few people. Anyway, yesterday I was trying to tell John this news about Parkland people that I've investigated. I don't know if you know some of this, but I'll go over it real quick. I can. So Cameron Scott Caskey is one of the big mouths out there. His dad, and I guess it's his uncle or his grandfather, they are attorneys for One World Adoption. And I think, I'm pretty sure from all that I've researched, they're involved with the Clintons down in Haiti. Because they brought 83 children to the U.S. for adoptions. So you got and his son is 19. They're not even in high school, and it's just a big wall of wax, is what I'm trying to say. A lot of actors I found.
Okay.
The lady that saw the Full Metal Jacket and all that, they're all actors. you can't find their, and that little girl, what's her name, Delaney Tars, she's graduating this year from the University of Florida. So it's a big hoax, and, it's to take the guns, of course, and shut us up and don't question their stories. And that's it. Have a good day.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot for the information. And yeah, there's unfortunately way too many people in this country who, in exchange for fame, wealth, power, are willing to suspend their moral and ethical nature. Another update on the Florida International University. Apparently, Shepard Smith is reporting the pedestrian bridge was undergoing a stress test where they were putting weights on it to make sure it was going to hold the weight of the pedestrians, which is something that you generally do. I think it would have been better to have done it when it was still at the original construction site and nothing was underneath it. But Mike Chernovich is the source of this claim, where witness is saying he saw the black crane that you see in the photographs of the bridge was carrying a heavy load of blue equipment, and the crane cable snapped, and whatever this blue equipment was fell and hit the bridge, and that's what triggered the collapse. So horrible, horrible tragedy on that. All right, getting on back to the war zones here. Britain is getting ready to pass their own version of the U.S. Magnitsky Act, targeting Russia after the poisoning of this double agent. They're just keeping up the propaganda, and they're referring to Magnitsky because Magnitsky was a Russian lawyer and whistleblower, Sergei Magnitsky, who died in prison in 2009. Now, there's an article that came out of Global Research basically pointing out the same people who assured you that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction now assure you that Russian Novichok nerve agents are being wielded by Vladimir Putin to attack people on British soil. And as we should have done more carefully with the claim about Saddam, we need to see the evidence for ourselves and decide for ourselves. Now, when Theresa May was going on a rant about how the Novichok came from Russia, she prudently did not use the word only, that it could only come from Russia, because that is an unsupportable statement. Now, she says this Novichok had been developed by Russia. That doesn't mean this poisoning was by a Russian. Antibiotics were first developed by a Scotsman, but not all antibiotics today are administered by Scots. That's how ridiculous that argument is. And we need to keep remembering, Great Britain is the nation that gave us that dodgy dossier on Iraq. Now, British Defense Secretary Gavin Williamson has set new lows for childish behavior by saying Russia should just go away and shut up. We're telling a great story here, and you're just getting in the way. In fact, that's why we don't like Russia. You're interfering with our global dominance. Now, the Novichok story is indeed another Iraqi-like WMD scam. Porton Down claims they've never seen any Russian Novichok. So, in theory, how do they know that's what was used on this spy? They don't have any samples. There's no fingerprint information that could link this to Russia. It's not like the anthrax that was used on the reporters and politicians after 9/11. That had DNA that allowed it to be traced back to a U.S. bioweapons lab. Now, the Novichok program was in Uzbekistan, not in Russia, and its legacy was inherited by the Americans during their alliance with Karimov, not by the Russians. Britain is still refusing to provide a sample of whatever it was that was used on the spy to the Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons. They're saying, trust us. This is too important. We would never lie to you. Now, Britain's abandonment of due process is leading the world down a very dangerous and reckless path. Theresa May is out there already declaring economic sanctions and diplomatic expulsions for Russia's failure to respond to allegations over the Skripal poisoning. Well, Russia did respond. They said, we've got nothing to do with it. But that isn't what Theresa May wanted. She demanded a confession. Another article, this one out of the original antiwar.com. Now, the name Novichok basically came from a single source, Vil Mirzayanov. He's a Russian-born chemist who revealed or claimed to reveal the existence of Novichok in a book, State Secrets, which tells supposedly his story as a chemist working in Russia's secret chemical weapons facilities. And he's basically saying anybody can make this stuff because apparently in a very reckless moment, he gives the instructions in his book. So anybody who wanted to frame the Russians could make up this stuff. Now, a former Guernsey member of parliament, is Anthony Weber, is saying that Great Britain, and in particular Theresa May, could end up looking very foolish the way phony Tony Blair looked after the truth came out about the dodgy dossier, how it was actually copied, plagiarized from an hopelessly outdated 12-year-old student thesis paper. Completely inaccurate, and they just dressed it up and said, oh yes, this is our intelligence report. Saddam has all these weapons, we must go to war. Now, apparently, earlier today, there was some kind of a security alert involving a mysterious package at Westminster, and police and ambulances were sent. We've heard no follow-up on it. At first, I was kind of concerned that they were going to claim that Russia attacked Parliament with more of this Novichok. First of all, Russia's not going to attack. Putin's history is trying to avoid and prevent wars, not start them. That's the U.S. job. But if Russia were going to attack anybody, you would know it. Why would Putin do such a thing right now? He's coming up on his elections. He's trying to get the World Cup, to be a success in Russia. Theresa May is now screaming that the EU should boycott it, which means nobody's going to watch it. The Kremlin is basically out there saying Great Britain is walking a dangerous and insane path. And yes, they are. But apparently the West, with the economies ready to crack, they're desperate to get the major war going. We have Nikki Haley out there signaling a false flag by saying Russia is going to use chemical weapons in New York City. We had that other general warning that some state actor was going to set off a low-yield nuclear weapon somewhere in the United States. If that Chinese satellite that's coming down in the next few weeks actually hits part of the United States of America, they may claim that was an attack from Russia or China. They're desperate to get this war going. And they're going to lose. They're going to lose this one. Now, the Senate, the House Intelligence Committee has basically rejected the underpinnings of Russiagate. They're saying it's all made up. The Russian interference, the Russian support of Donald Trump. The indications are that Russia actually wanted Hillary Clinton to win the presidency because they're able to blackmail her and control her with the Uranium One deal. You know, this bashing Russia thing has just gone too far. Now, over at the United Nations Security Council, Russia proposed a draft resolution simply asking for a full, complete investigation of what happened to Skripal. They didn't say anybody was to blame. They were just saying that basically all the states need to consult and cooperate in the investigation as prescribed by the Chemical Weapons Convention. Great Britain vetoed the resolution. They just want to keep on screaming, Russia did it, Russia did it, Russia did it, and they don't want things like the facts and the truth to get in their way. I mean, clearly they have something to hide. They're refusing to provide a sample of whatever it was used on Skripal. It's like Theresa May has a flashing neon sign glued to her forehead. Guilty, 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 guilty. Now, Britain's equivalent of the military-industrial complex has already taken advantage of the situation, and they have asked for £48 million in a new chemical weapons defense center. They're basically going to expand Porton Down. Now, if anybody in Great Britain could make this Novichok, it would be Porton Down. Porton Down is claiming they don't have samples, they don't have the formula, but again, considering that there are treaties saying that you're not supposed to be messing around with this stuff, you can't expect Porton Down would be truthful. Again, Great Britain is the country that gave us the dodgy dossier. Now, as tensions between Russia and Great Britain escalate, Russia is holding a huge military drill with their naval fleet. And the exercise in this case was to demonstrate their ability to pick drones out of the sky. And apparently taking part in this exercise was the huge missile ship Tatarstan and the stealth frigate Dagestan. And basically drones were flown through the sky, and they were taken out of the air using mounted AK-630M guns. Now, France is not on board with all this Russian nonsense, and France is accusing Theresa May of punishing Russia prematurely over what they're calling fantasy politics, and that's a good way to put it. Theresa May and the U.S. have basically come up with this fantasy of bad Russia, bad Russia, bad Russia, and they're acting on it as if it's the truth. And they get very huffy and indignant if you don't believe what they say. George Galloway has come on out and saying that efforts to blame Russia for the nerve agent attack targeting Russian double agent Skripal and his daughter reminds him very much of the run-up to the war in Iraq, like the assassination of Dr. David Kelly over the sexed up dodgy dossiers it was. Now, the good news is NATO is refusing to allow Great Britain to invoke Article 5 over the British claims against Russia. Now, Article 5 of the NATO alliance is an attack on any member state of NATO, is an attack on them all, and they are all, under Article 5, obligated to come to the defense of the attacked country. And basically, NATO's response was that Article 5 would be a totally disproportionate response to this one incident, which means there are probably going to be more incidents. They're not going to quit now. They've gone too far. They can't turn around and go back. All the Western economies would implode. Now, the West has launched a large-scale campaign to kick Russia out of the United Nations Security Council. And basically, as you know, Russia tends to veto a lot of these U.S. aggressive resolutions. If Russia gets kicked out, the only one left there with any sanity is going to be China. They'll be targeted next. This is really serious stuff. This is very serious stuff. Now, back in 2014, Ukrainian member of parliament Nadezhda Savchenko was lauded as a hero for her role in the Donbass military campaign and her prosecution in Russia. She's now accused of plotting to blow up the national parliament in Kiev. And apparently, the prosecutors are basically trying to arrest her, strip her of legal immunity, and allow her arrest. And apparently, she has admitted that current Ukrainian officials led snipers to central Kiev. Remember when that whole Maidan situation was going on, and there were snipers on the roof shooting in both directions to just keep the violence up. Now, do you remember a while back where our diplomats down in Cuba were accusing the government of Cuba of sonic attacks, of playing sounds that made them ill, and it was basically justification to pull back from the normalization of relations with Cuba. Well, now there's a story out here where they're saying, scientists are saying, well, actually it was just poor engineering on the eavesdropping devices. And instead of listening, they were outputting these strange sounds, and it was completely unintentional. And the sounds really are kind of harmless, and so it really wasn't that big deal. Now, there is more to this story. There's something going on in the background. We'll talk about it when we come back from these words from our sponsors.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75% dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. Now, we're talking about the strange sonic attacks in Cuba. And when it first came on out, of course, the hardliners were saying, gosh darn those evil Cubans. It's an attack on our personnel. And they basically exploited it to end the normalization of relations between the United States and Cuba, just to prove the CIA could still cling to a grudge after 60 years after the Bay of Pigs. Well, now all of a sudden they're coming on out and saying that scientists are saying it wasn't intentional. It was poorly engineered eavesdropping devices. Now, knowing a little something about recording and electronics, I'm not sure. It's hard to imagine how a microphone can all of a sudden be emitting sounds plugged into the front end of the amplifier. You'd have to move it around to the back end, plug it in, and then it would operate like a speaker. So what I think is going on here is if we are really going to war with Russia, which unfortunately seems obvious, the U.S. needs to not allow Russia to regain the old Soviet foothold on Cuba. So now the attacks were unintentional. We're going to be friends. We're going to normalize relations, end the embargo, which means we're finally going to get some of that fine Cuban rum and Cuban cigars here in the United States of America. Okay, here we are. Now then, the Land Research Center states that Israel has been systematically demolishing Palestinian neighborhoods since 1967. Thousands of them, 5,000. And Israel, apparently thinking that we're all distracted by wars in other lands and collapsing bridges, is basically escalating their campaign against the Palestinians. Now, Israel's parliament, the Knesset, has passed a law that allows Israeli police to withhold the bodies of Palestinians killed by Israeli forces until their families agree to preconditions on the funeral arrangements, mostly about not allowing media in to take pictures. And this law applies to Palestinian citizens of Israel and those living in East Jerusalem, but not to Palestinians in the rest of the West Bank or the Gaza Strip who live under Israeli military rule. And the legislation was passed despite an Israeli High Court ruling last year which determined the police have no legal authority to withhold bodies, and doing so is a violation of basic rights. Well, the Knesset has shown them. Israeli settlers once again have attacked houses and attempted to burn a mosque in the Hebron area. And again, no interference whatsoever from the Israeli authorities. And a video has now surfaced showing Israeli forces attacking Palestinian medics attempting to save a Palestinian who'd been shot during clashes in the area. Now, attacking the other side's medical personnel, that's a tacky no-no. We'll be right back.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're talking about Israel and Palestine. And apparently, Israeli forces destroyed tombstones in a Palestinian cemetery in occupied East Jerusalem early Monday morning. Now, remember, every time a Jewish cemetery gets desecrated, somebody spray paints it, it's big news, big news, big news. You're not going to hear about this in the corporate media. And apparently, the tombstones commemorated people who were killed by Israeli forces during a wave of violence across East Jerusalem in the West Bank in October of 2015. And their tombstones basically commemorated that they were part of that, and the Israeli forces basically just smashed them all up. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Don in the Philippines, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Yes, I think still, as far as going to war with Russia, I hope we're not going to go to war with Russia. And if you look at the situation in Korea, I don't know if they're actually going to go through with it, but Trump says anyway that he's going to go have a meeting with this guy Little Kim over there.
Kim Jong-un, yes.
And they call him Little Kim. Trump called him the Rocket Man for a while, but Trump is a showman. It looks like what happened in Korea. If it's true that they haven't scheduled a meeting, I don't believe yet, but I think they're going to have a meeting anyway. There's a chance.
They're talking about it before May, so it's got to be either this month or April. Japan is now talking about having a summit with Kim Jong-un.
Right. So, and before that, there was all this brinksmanship. Really, they were putting all kinds of pressure on him, economic sanctions, and this, that, and talking about invasion and all that. But and then
did you notice
I guess
how?
They decided, well, okay.
Did you notice how North Korea became much less of a priority after that meeting between Netanyahu and Trump?
Well, wait a minute. My computer's.
Remember a week ago we had AIPAC had their convention. Netanyahu came here, did his speech before everybody. That they treated him like God incarnate, and he had a private meeting with Donald Trump. And right at that meeting is when the U.S. military priorities got shuffled around, and Iran got shoved to the top, and North Korea kind of fell off a few steps of the ladder.
Okay, but basically, my main point is, I'm hoping there's not going to be a war. Now, Pompeo is, they're moving up to Secretary of State. Pompeo, what they're doing, it looks like they're grooming this guy to be someday be the president, the Republican nominee for president. He was #1 in his class in West Point, so he's not stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I like the guy, but he's not stupid. He had a successful. He was from California. He had a successful business in Wichita, Kansas, because that's where all the aerospace industry is there. And then he and then he was a congressman from Kansas, and now he's CIA director. So he's got his resume set up. Now he's going to be Secretary of State. He's got his resume set up to probably be vice president and/or president. So, and this guy, but that's not going to happen if we have a war with Russia. So these guys are not. He's not suicidal.
Well,
so
see, they're all. Hang on, you're forgetting. They're all convinced they're going to win this war, and that yes, there will be future presidents and vice presidents. They're not looking at they've got their bunkers all set up, and part of the nation may be destroyed in this war, but they're still going to go on being presidents and vice presidents. And the reality is that when two countries go to war, both sides go into it thinking they're going to win, and obviously half the time some of these people are going to be wrong. And the U.S. has had a tremendous success in war. It's won most of its conflicts, the overt ones, except of course for Vietnam and the Korean War. For the covert wars, they're batting about 500. And that's a lesson that they should take. But yeah, the people who are pushing for this confrontation with Russia and China, they're absolutely convinced they're going to be able to win a nuclear war. I don't want a nuclear war. You don't want a nuclear war. The people listening to this show don't want a nuclear war. But you'd better start seriously preparing to have to deal with one, just in case. Just like you prepare for hurricanes, just like you prepare for flooding, just like you prepare for earthquakes, you'd better get prepared for the possibility of a nuclear war. You better look on a map and see how close you are to a first or second strike target. And obviously, if you're very close, then I wouldn't bother with any preparations. But if you're a little bit further away, start coming up with a plan.
Right. When he does have this meeting with Kim, if he does, that's going to be a hell of a deal, dude. That'll be a media circus. Well, I'll let you go, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go here. We're going to do a shout out to our honor affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And already the Democrats, especially Hillary Clinton, are saying that Trump shouldn't meet Kim Jong-un because Trump lacks the experience, he lacks the diplomatic skills, that he's just not up to the job. So again, they're just pounding on him like crazy. And unfortunately, in this case, they may well be right. And I'm presuming that Donald Trump is going to take along his Secretary of State and other diplomats to do the negotiating for him. And we have actually heard from a source inside the White House that says, yeah, during these heavy meetings, Trump just kind of sets back and he lets his advisors do the discussing. So we'll see what happens with that. Getting on back to Israel and Palestine, as you know, the Gaza Strip borders the Mediterranean. And it wasn't all that long ago when Gazan children could go swimming at the beach like we all like to do. We all have done during our childhood. Now, Gaza children are being told to stay away from the water because apparently there is so much pollution and raw sewage in that water, it has become extremely dangerous. So the Gazans don't have fresh water. The people who are trying to fish in that water, they're trying to, go out far enough to get away from the pollution, at which point Israel starts shooting at them. It is a gulag that Israel is keeping the Palestinians in. So, or a ghetto, whatever you want to call it. Now, the United States Navy, as you know, everyone's getting ready to start fighting over the Arctic because supposedly there's a lot more oil up there. It's very deep, going to be very hard to get at, but they're already getting ready to fight over it. And apparently the U.S. Navy is running a test project where they're literally setting up a military base on a floating ice floe up in the Arctic. And it is near Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, and it is being accompanied by 3 nuclear submarines. And they're basically saying it's a very inexpensive, natural occurring aircraft carrier that we can't steer. Now, over by Key West, they've had another problem with the F-18 fighter jet. It apparently exploded in midair, burst into flames, and crashed into the ocean near Key West. With the part of the Strike Fighter Squadron 213, the Black Lions, and it just caught fire and fell into the ocean. The pilot and the weapon system operator parachuted to safety, but they were rescued, but they later died at the hospital, which makes you wonder just how good or bad that ejection system is. Now, I've heard from pilots who've been through an ejection that it can seriously mess up your back for months. And maybe the flames were inside the cockpit. Maybe they died of flame injuries. But it's another reminder that our weapons aren't all that really good. I know the F-18 looks really good. Everybody loves to look at the Blue Angels. They've been out here to Hawaii for a few times. But apparently they're short of spare parts. And that's become a major problem for keeping the F-18 in the air. They're running out of spare parts, and maybe that was what went wrong with this jet as well. All right, let's talk about the economic news. Toys R Us is going out of business, and it's going to shutter and sell its stores in the United States. They were trying to find a buyer or restructure billions in debt. 30,000 jobs are going to be lost, and Claire and I are going to go over to the Toys R Us over here and sort of stock up on things for all the new little children we have in the neighborhood. It's actually kind of fun. All sorts of new babies being born. So we get some little plushy toys and torment them with it. Article coming on out of Investment Watch blog, what Trump's trade war could mean for you. And yes, we want to stimulate the U.S. steel and aluminum industries, especially for going to war. We have to have a domestic supply. If we go to war, though, trying to import steel from other countries, the submarines are going to be having a field day sinking those ships. But of course, for us here in America, everything made using steel or aluminum is going to go up in price. And companies who are making these products basically have three choices. They can absorb the cost and fire workers, or they can absorb the cost and lower their profit margin, which the stockholders are not going to be happy about, or they can pass on the added cost to consumers. I'll bet you can guess which one they are likely to do. Now, there's another warning over from Zero Hedge. Trump's tariffs could start a real war, and there have been many times in history where tariff wars have led to outright military hostilities. Now, this article is saying that Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs may set his epitaph in stone, Herbert Hoover too. I disagree with that because Hoover inherited an economy that was about to go into a depression. But there is no question Trump's decision to do tariffs at this time was not well thought out. So the other day we were talking about real estate prices being so high, housing prices being so high, and going up rapidly, which is forcing Americans into more homelessness, dormitory living, living in recreational vehicles. And I mentioned that we were back to this problem of house flipping to run up the equity value, to create instant imaginary wealth. And I got a little confirmation today in this story from Zero Hedge. House flipping in the U.S. has hit an 11-year high. We're on the same path that led to the crash of 2008. And Wall Street and Washington, D.C. have not learned anything from that disaster. Because, except for AIG, they all eventually made money off the deals. They got their bonuses, and they got government bailouts at taxpayer expense. The losses, the damage from the 2008 collapse of the mortgage-backed security fraud fell on the taxpayers. It fell on those homeowners who'd gotten those variable rate mortgages. It's terrible. All right, let's take another phone call. Chris, I don't have a place you're calling from. What's on your mind?
Thank you very much, Michael. This is Chris near Las Vegas, and I thought I'd drop back to your story on the missing jet parts.
Okay.
I had the occasion to be working for the United States government in the military back in 71, 2, 3, and 71, 72, they were rolling out what's termed a just-in-time program of part supplies to find one central stocking distributor who would be able to allegedly supply all the parts needed for military programs or particular chains and strains of supply items that might be needed for maintenance purposes, such as airplane parts, air conditioning parts, battlefield parts, everything else. It was a broad ideological concept that unfortunately was fatally flawed from the very beginning because of the preposterosity and absurdity that one inventory control people could supplicate and be privy to what the needs may be or what the defects could be in the equipment that would necessitate early replacement, early failure, or perhaps long-term service. And it's worthy of note that Jeff Bezos, allegedly NSA, CIA operation of Amazon, is attempting to do the same thing, to be the supplicator of everything to everybody under the guise of his a little bit cheaper now, although it may be more costly later plan.
Mm-hmm.
And this reveals the fatal flaw in the concept that you have no way of prognosticating, predicting, or even speculating what may actually occur as opposed to what hypothetically they would like to presume will occur, and that's where they fall flat. And when you manufacture a fatal defective product from the very get-go, then the supply to keep them running grows exponentially.
Yes.
And it outruns any possible theoretical replacement ratio based upon long term, because it fails in the short term outside the window of a replacement opportunity.
Okay. I understand what you're saying.
Well, this is an unfortunate or perhaps a devious oversight or intentional mistake in the theoreticals who plan, these central planners who come up with these schemes that they think are going to be wonderful, and they turned out to be devastating. And when it has national security implications, it certainly seems like there could be some culpability, liability, or suitability attributed to the people who came up with this disingenuous plan in the first.
You've got two conflicting interests. You've got the military-industrial complex, which is trying to make the most money possible by selling as much as they can to the Department of Defense, and you've got the Department of Defense, which, as big as its budget is, it's still limited. And so I think the thinking behind what you're describing was the idea of having what we need when we need it, without huge, expensive stockpiles. And I have two stories to share with you on that regard. Many years ago, right out of college, I had a good friend who's sadly passed away since then. And he was an electronics technician for the United States Air Force. And he used to tell me it was just absolutely amazing. They would get a part like a diode or a resistor or a silicon-controlled rectifier, and in the package it would say, this device will fail after so many hours. And my friend was just absolutely amazed that after that many hours, yes, the device actually would fail. And I think it's basically on that that this idea that they can predict where and when they're going to need replacement parts is coming from. All of this, of course, only works when you're having peacetime. Or you're not having airplanes, have accidents and crash into things and fall out of the sky. Obviously, during wartime, it's a completely different story. People who've actually been in logistics in warfare say that supplies come in, they immediately go out. It just pours through the fingers like water. If the supply chain breaks, you're going to lose the battle. Again, Harry Truman had to deal with this in the years prior to World War II. Of trying to get the military supply to be cost effective, which it most certainly is not right now. And the second story I want to share with you relates to the dangers of having too much of these parts on hand, because they start running out of room. And many years ago, when I was working with NASA, and I was working on a project to phase link the radio telescope at the Table Mountain Observatory, which is sadly no longer there, with one of the dishes at the Goldstone. And in order to do that, we had to have a repeater so that the two telescopes could communicate with each other and phase lock, which would simulate a single radio telescope several miles in diameter, the distance from Table Mountain to Goldstone. And we put the relays in what were called the Gator sites, which was a network of radio relay locations all over California that allowed flight controllers to talk to military aircraft in the air anywhere over California. I don't know if the system is still there or not, or if they do it all with satellites. And while I was there, I was not part of this, but while I was there, the technicians working on the Gator site called down to their supply depot for just a box of diodes. Now, I'll give you the rest of the story when we come back from these words from our sponsors.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux is really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder and their lower legs were hurting in a red color, but thankfully, there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And once again, if you are able in any way to support independent media, now is when we need you. The war is definitely on. And it's taking its toll on both sides. iHeartMedia just declared bankruptcy. If you are able to help Republic Broadcasting, the postal address to send a check or money order is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number, if you want to become a recurring subscriber, is 800-724-2719, extension 03. I thank you. The network thanks you. We have to keep going. We're literally on the edge of a nuclear war, and we've got to find some way to either shut it down or at least get everybody ready to deal with it. Okay, so we're talking about the dangers of too much stockpiles of military stuff. And back during my NASA days, I'm working on this project to phase lock 2 radio telescopes. We're setting the repeater up at one of these little desert facilities for what's called the Gator Network. And the engineers working on the Gator network call down to wherever their supply depot is and says, we need a box of thus and such diodes. And the supply depot says, well, we can get the truck up there on its next regular scheduled run, which will be about 3 weeks from now. And the commander of this unit at the Gator site is saying, no, we need it right now. We've got to get this unit up and running. The guy at the supply depot said, well, we can't send a special truck for less than a minimum sized order. And so the commander said, well, look, just throw whatever you want on the truck that you're not using anymore to make that minimum load and get the truck up here. Later that same afternoon, a huge truck rolls on up and unloads and unloads and unloads and unloads. And the stack of boxes was almost as big as the Gator building itself. And they got their little box of diodes, and there was amazing stuff in there. The master specialty switches, the really expensive ones that light up. I mean, back then they were $35 each on the civilian market. I can only imagine what the military paid for them. These huge glass triodes for powerful radio transmitters, heat sinks that came off of missiles. I mean, it was just amazing to see all this stuff. So the commander calls back down and says, look, we can't store all this stuff. If we leave it out here, exposed to the sun and the rain, it's all going to be ruined. And the supply depot guy says, well, we'll get the truck up there for it eventually. And then the commander asked a question that really made him popular with everybody at the Gator site. And that was, well, since this is stuff you're not really using, can we help ourselves to some of this stuff? And the guy at the supply depot said, sure. By the time the truck got there, there was like maybe some paper clips left. And that's the problem. They spend all this money, they buy all this stuff, and then they're just reckless with it. And it is amazing to see this utter disregard for what this is all costing the American taxpayer. It's just amazing here. Anything else, Chris? I guess we lost Chris. Okay, let's switch over to Edward in Las Vegas. Aloha, Edward. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I hear you talking about the tariffs and saying, it's doom and gloom, kind of a negative thing. And I get it for some items where, it just doesn't make sense for Americans to do it. Great, let's have a free trade. But you were talking about the aluminum thing. I mean, I heard Ben Shapiro trying to spin this, never Trumper Ben Shapiro, by the way, total Zionist. He was spinning it like, oh, yeah, end of the world tariffs, you're going to pay more for beer. And then you look into it, it's like, oh, okay, I got to pay 5 cents more for a can of beer. That's fine if it gives an American a job, keeps the money in this country or whatever. And same with, what was it, a house, I think? Or, no, a car. A car was like $50 more or something. So, I mean, the amount of money that it was like totally worth it, I think, to at least keep more jobs in this country. And if we ever do have a collapse, and we actually have to rely on, making things besides financial products, we have to be able to make stuff again,
Well, I agree with that latter part here, but the issue is whether or not we can win a tariffs war. And the reason I don't think we can is the debt load on the U.S. as a whole, coupled with the fact that we basically gave away our manufacturing. And it's going to take a long time for it to come on back. And again, ordinary citizens, once again, are paying for the policy decisions of a government, policy decisions that were not really very wise and prudent, but merely served the interests of corporate America.
So what would happen? What are you advocating? Are you advocating just like completely free trade? Because our standard of living would have to be reduced to that of what we bring in if we do that.
Well, I'm basically advocating that instead of sending all this money all over the world to kill people, that we bring that money back to rebuild our factories and we make a product other nations want to buy, and then we don't have to worry about tariffs at all. Anyway, thank you for the phone call. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court ruling have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has a legal defect. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're going to go back to the phones to Jeff in St. Paul. Aloha, Jeff. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, a couple things. Number one, it's been a while since I've called. Number two, it's easier to find your show because you got that thing right at the top where you push the button and it goes to YouTube and you get the live show, right?
Yep.
And I'd like you to add on the webpage right under that link, say, call in during the show with the phone number. Because I had to Google to find it. But anyway, I'm calling about our wonderful situation with the incoming king of Saudi Arabia that apparently has sent his mother off to the Hooskow so she can't talk to her father. She might tell him that her son is rapidly attacking and killing other members of the family over the succession and rise to power, and he's also killing off the Yemenis because they're out of oil and they need some fresh sources of oil. And that's all yet.
Well, I know that the Saudi Crown Prince has just come on out and announced that if Iran gets a nuclear bomb, which they haven't been trying to get one, but that's the propaganda, that Saudi Arabia will seek nuclear weapons.
But he's coming in, and I mean, think about it. I mean, these aren't just families; these are different tribes that have warehouses full of weapons and helicopters and all that fancy stuff that they can get, you know.
Yep.
That they use it, and I don't know. It looks like the decision's been made to go back and go to war in the Mideast, and it's
the whole
ugly.
world is going
really
to war.
It's like
the whole world is going to war.
And,
we are on the threshold of World War III. In fact, I'm pretty sure that 50 years from now, history books will say that we were already in World War III at this time.
Yeah, so anyway, but it's been a while since they called in because it was frustrating for a while because they'd miss your show and I couldn't find you. Then I could find it on, listen later and stuff. But, yeah, it's working pretty good now. And yeah, there's a lot going on these days. It's got a lot to... So go back to work, man. Get some more stuff.
All right. Yes, sir.
you
Yes,
later.
sir. I will definitely do that.
All right.
Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Mateus in Canada. Aloha, Mateus. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. I've been listening every day, and I have a list of about 100 things. But maybe we can get to a couple. Hey, I agree with you about the Lego. Totally ridiculous that it's pre-designed for you. I in the same as you, I was very disappointed when I first saw that. And I want to complain officially that things catch on fire way too easily in the movies.
Yes.
Like, give me a break. Everything is 20 times more flammable. Regarding your collection donations for Bitcoin, a really easy workaround is that you can have a Coinbase account that's located, from a trusted friend or family outside of Hawaii, and then
I could, but you need to understand how incredibly complicated my life is right now, dealing with the YouTube, dealing with the radio show, dealing with the website. I'm the roadie for Claire's Two Choirs, plus other things that are coming on in, and I just don't want to take on something else that I have to monitor and fiddle and fidget with. And I'm very grateful to those people who sent in Bitcoin donations, but it didn't really amount to a significant amount of money, and so I just decided I got to focus on the content for the website and not get tangled up in all these different things that are going on. I'm 65 years old, and I still have most of my marbles, but there is just so much involved in doing all that I have to do right now, and I'm trying to simplify my life a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. Just keep it in mind if someone like me or someone else could easily volunteer to be a manager in that department and would just be like sending a bank transfers once a week. But anyways, moving on. My prime minister in Canada is like such an embarrassment. He's dressing up in these Indian clothes,
Yes.
and so in love with this culture. And my girlfriend is explaining to me that in India they have something called white widows. And so, at least in some parts of India, if not all of India, if you're widowed, then you are shunned from society for the rest of your life. You have to wear this. You have to shave your head and wear white clothes and just get beaten up randomly in the street and be kicked out of society and into poverty for the rest of your life. I mean, this is like caveman mentality. What are we?
Yeah.
What is he so in love with? And then he's so in love with this Muslim also, which believes in raping children for child bride weddings and pedophilia. They have this tradition. I forget the name of it, but it's where you dress up a young boy between 9 years old and 13, and he dances like a girl, and then you go and rape him in the ass. And they're like, no, we can't give this up. This is our tradition. It's like, okay, so what are you so in love with about? And I also want to mention that this is caveman mentality here. Like, it's it really is. And so this is why you have to have borders, because we're all progressing in civilization at different rates. And some countries have come out of the caveman days a little faster than others. I realize on like a historical large time scale, we're all emerging about the same time, the blink of an eye, a couple thousand years here or there. But as far as our daily lives are concerned, where the rubber meets the road, being a human being on the earth right now, we have to have these borders to protect this like fragile, like a flower of civilization.
I agree with you.
In different areas in the world.
I agree with you. I think the real measure of a civilization is how they take care of the weak, the young, the disadvantaged, the hurt. And I don't think you should be using the caveman analogy, because look at all the pedophilia that's going on in the Catholic Church. And I'm sure that the Catholics listening to this show would be very upset by being equated with cavemen.
Well, unfortunately, we're all acting like cavemen, just in different ways. Like, how do you solve a problem when you're a caveman? You get a big bone and you hit someone over the head with it. How do you solve a problem now? You get a big gun and you shoot someone in the head with it. And by the way, I'm really unhappy that my Canadian government has just sent over thousands and thousands of automatic weapons, more destructive than AK-47 type weapons, over to Ukraine to try to start World War III with Russia. I didn't vote for that.
Yeah.
And also, this Prime Minister, he spent our tax money traveling across all the provinces of Canada following the gay parade and then walking in the parade. That's not representing my interests. And I think it's very discriminatory to be and prejudice to be forcing down the throat one small minority group's interest onto everybody else. I got no problem with somebody that wants to be gay. I got a problem when my tax dollars are being spent against my will to promote a 2 or 3% of the population's interest. I want a parade. Where's my taxpayer-funded parade, my family pride parade?
Boy, there's a good idea. We need a straight white male parade down Main Street, USA.
Well, just mother, father, I've already got the flag idea. It's just a stick man, stick woman, stick boy, stick girl, all holding hands. It's pride. It's a family. It's a family flag. And we want tax money. We're going to have parades. You're going to have to bake cakes for us. If not, you're going to be going to court if you don't like it. It's so ridiculous.
It is. It's the liberal agenda to undermine our sense of identity and our sense of self, to make it easier to control us in the New World Order. What are they up to now? 192 different genders? I mean, it really is ridiculous.
Yeah, we're under asymmetrical warfare, and that's just one of the ways, is to try to confuse us about which bathroom to use and what gender we're supposed to be. And it's very powerful how they are brainwashing the children with this kind of stuff. People like you and me and your audience, are intelligent enough to see it and laugh at it and shake our heads. But when you're 5 or 6 years old, in kindergarten, grade 1 and 2, and going on, you're getting hit with this stuff.
Yeah.
You don't know to laugh at it.
No,
you're actually absorbing this.
Yeah, young kids are, they're too young to understand that the big people can be full of it. And our educational system is all about indoctrination rather than education. I mean, look at the kids coming out of high school. They actually have to be warned not to eat a Tide Pod. That's how bad our educational system has become.
Not to eat a what?
A Tide Pod. The little pod full of laundry soap.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a craze on YouTube for a while there.
Oh, that's true. Hey, one last thing. I wanted to weigh in on the anthill. That, why would aliens stop on the Earth?
Yep.
Because it's do you stop and look at every anthill? Well, just for the fun, a minor fun disagreement on this is, I would say that I might actually stop and check out the anthill if it was the only anthill in Canada, and if it was perhaps the only exact representation of that species. And maybe if it was under observation, maybe in a museum, in a kind of a zoo, and then let's say so you did stop and look at it. Well, you're not allowed to go walk around in the anthill. You'd be behind the bars at the zoo, kind of like you've got 10,000 reports, interesting reports of UFOs, but none of them really landing on the front lawn saying, "Take me to your leader." It's kind of like at the zoo, and it only takes one of those 10,000 compelling reports to be true. So, from my perspective, obviously I don't have any proof, just for the fun of an opinion. I think that we are of interest. We are rare. we're being kind of like considered like okay, it's unique, but they're primitive and dangerous. We don't want them to get out into space with too many weapons, obviously. So let's keep them under observation. And yeah, they are checking us out. Anyways, just for the fun of it. And
all right. Well, obviously, I disagree with you on that that issue. First of all, we're not just one anthill. We're one of literally millions in this galaxy alone. And space travel, no matter how advanced you are, it's still very expensive. If you're going from planet A to planet B, you're going to use an X amount of whatever fuel you're using. To stop at Earth, take a look around, and then start back up to your destination effectively doubles the fuel requirement. So again, maybe somewhere there is a giant cosmic university and there's a scientist who has a grant to come take a look here, but I have never seen any compelling evidence of an extraterrestrial visitation. And believe me, I have looked. I went through a phase where I thought it was an interesting idea. And, you know, I got caught up in this ego trip identity that space aliens were staying up nights to admire us. But I've sort of outgrown that.
Hey, have you heard of a guy named John Hutchison?
No, I haven't.
He was the guy working with the U.S. government sent in a bunch of observers and 7 different cameras because he was messing around with Tesla coils in Vancouver, Canada, which, by the way, I live in Vancouver, BC, in Canada. And he had a laboratory in Canada, and he was having some strange anomalies like gravitational effects and spontaneous fires starting up. And
well, I can understand why the spontaneous fires might start up, you know, with that much electricity. As far as gravity, I'm not so sure. Mateus, I got to let you go. I got another caller on the line, and we're starting to run short on time. So thank you very much for the phone call. And we're going to switch over to Kevin in West Virginia. Aloha, Kevin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mr. Mike. Hope you're doing well today. One of the few questions that I have is about McCabe and the whole Mueller and the whole Russia investigation thing. I'm thinking, and I guess you heard the rumors too, McCabe probably is going to be, or the rumor was that he's going to be criminal charges before and won't get his pension, you know, before he's fired.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I'm wondering, I totally agree with you. I'm wondering, one of the things that I'm wondering is Mueller, has he rolled over to Trump? And, you know, could these indictments coming in, are they low-level Democrats that they're coming in on? Or is this, you know, we keep saying a fishing expedition, but I'm wondering, you know, is him and Sessions, is this a build-up to 2018 midterms to actually, you know, be a bombshell on the whole Democrats?
Well, I'm sure that Trump's advisors are saying that if there are going to be arrests and charges and trials, that yes, the closer to November it happens, the better for the Republican Party in the midterm elections. Everybody inside the Beltway, no matter what happens, it's considered from a purely political point of view. It's raining today. How can I take advantage of this? Well, we'll blame the global warming people or something. But yes, I would expect that if there's going to be any spectacular scandals coming out on the Democrats, it's definitely going to happen later this year.
Yeah, I was wondering what your thoughts on that were. And about yesterday, I had called in about everybody uniting together under the First Amendment. That caller that called in and was talking about Alex being a Zionist, that's not even the point. The point of the matter is, and he proved my point, that we are so divided that we can't even come together over petty little differences, you know, and it's a shame, and it kind of hurts my heart a little bit that we're so divided under the trivial and the petty little things.
The government's trying to keep us divided. The one thing the government is really afraid of is the American people coming together as a single, united American people and turning their attention to the true cause of all the discord and poverty and hardship that we're all living under. They did it back in the 1960s during COINTELPRO. They were deliberately stirring up friction between the blacks and the whites, between the peace movement and those who were pro-war, even the early feminists, trying to get them radicalized. That's how the government keeps control of us. They keep us at each other's throats and then steps in and promises that they will protect us from each other in exchange for a small increase in taxation.
Yeah. And taking our liberties and, taking away our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which I would hope every American, could put aside our petty little differences and agree for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do here. And like I said, I stand with Alex Jones. This is about the First Amendment and the independent media. All right, we're going to have to let you go. We got to take a commercial break. Thank you very much. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Hey, honey, I'm home. I grabbed a newspaper on the way home. Look at all the news today.
Don't you know that all you're going to get in the newspaper is propaganda, twisted news, and false information?
Honey, this is a national newspaper. It has to be true.
Ha! For some reason, the majority of the population believe anything the mainstream media tells them. The newspaper doesn't give out the important attention of what's happening to this country and news that affects our daily lives. Say, does that newspaper mention anything about the North American Union?
No, not that I can see.
I didn't think so. You need to go to www.newswithviews.com, where truth is more important than political correctness. That's www.newswithviews.com. Hey, don't throw that away. We can use that in the birdcage.
Okay, move over. Let me start reading newswithviews.com.
The truth? Read all about it at newswithviews.com. Newswithviews.com, where reality shatters illusion.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MiGrelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MiGrelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And I'm actually getting emails from people saying they love the idea. A family pride parade, a flag. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a very, very good idea. All right, let's talk about the economic news here a little bit. Lynette Zhang is out there saying we need to be paying attention to the IMF and the central banks because there will be a monetary reset. She's absolutely convinced Mike Maloney is out there saying the next crash will be soon and big. Gwen Preston is saying that gold sees the best outlook in years because they're not going to be able to keep that price suppressed the way they have been up until now. Now, the Bank of International Settlements is warning that the Canadian economy is in danger of crashing. All of these nations with all of these central banks, private central banks, they're all mired with debt, and they can't sustain it much longer. Now, Bill Holter is pointing out how Russia and China just signaled the world that it is ready to move away. They are ready to move away from the dollar bill. And I am wondering if this tariff situation continues to heat up, China and Russia could just dump their U.S. bonds and try and crash the U.S. bond market. Of course, the Federal Reserve would just create some dollars out of thin air, like they always do, and buy up the bonds, which seems like it should be illegal, and for anybody else it would be. Now, over in Oklahoma, their Senate has approved a ball and dice games for the Native American tribal casinos. They have reservations in Oklahoma that are allowed to basically operate semi-autonomously. That's the deal with the Native Americans. And the Senate is basically saying that the tribal casinos, which up until now have been just poker parlors, they're going to be allowed to have roulette wheels and dice games. And they're expecting it will generate about $22 million for the state budget. So yeah, when the economy gets tight, let's get into sin. Let's tax the heck out of it here. This must have been amazing to see happen. Apparently over in Russia's Yakutia region, there was an aircraft taking off, a Nimbus Airlines AN-12, and it was carrying a cargo of gold bars. And shortly after takeoff, the cargo hatch blew off. And they dropped most of the gold cargo just all over the ground. And I can imagine they might not get it all back. But there's a big whoopsie for you. There's a big whoopsie. Somebody's going to be in trouble for that one here. Now, the U.S. is imposing, once again, new sanctions on Russia, supposedly over the 2016 election meddling, which nobody has found any evidence of, while ignoring the very real meddling going on by Israel. You can see how completely insane all of this is. It's just another way to poke at Russia, and hope that Russia does something that can be seized on to justify a war. We'll be right back after station identification.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
This is RBN,
The Republic Broadcasting Network.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're talking about the economic news. And I've always held it to be the highest moral imperative that we leave a better world to the next generation than that which was left to us. And unfortunately, my generation has failed to do that. And one of the areas in which it's felt is the economy. And apparently, young people are just being crushed by school loan debt. The cost of a college education has gone up way out of pace with the rate of inflation. And the bankers are right there willing to just loan all this money to these students and promise there's going to be all kinds of fabulous jobs for you when you graduate with that degree in art history, and you'll be able to pay the loans back very quickly. But it's turning out some of these kids are going to be making payments on these loans into their late 30s, possibly even the early 40s. Debt-laden millennials are basically, on average, under $140,000 of debt more than their parents were at the same age. And they're still telling us the times are good. Now, over in France, they have some very strict laws regarding working hours. And being closed on Sunday is actually mandated by the French government because they want everyone to have a day of rest. They want to go to church or whatever it is you do on Sundays. And there is a baker, Cedric Vieira, who runs, obviously, a bakery, and he's been running it 7 days a week because people want to come in and get their baguettes and croissants on Sunday morning. And so he's been fined the equivalent of 2,600 pounds for working too hard. And his customers are saying he's being treated very, very shabbily. And apparently he's very good at what he does and doesn't want to try and hire somebody in to take over that extra day because he's not sure he can maintain the quality. Now, over in Italy, which is still recovering from the shocking results of their recent election, Salvini is out there accusing the European Union of using left-wingers to sell its propaganda. And was having to announce his resignation as a member of the European Parliament. But the two sides are shaping on up. They really are. Now, over in California, or maybe we should call it California, they've actually appointed an illegal immigrant to a state office. Senate President Pro Tem Kevin DeLeon appointed Elizabeth Mateo to the California Student Opportunity and Access Program Project Grant Advisory Committee. So she's going to be handing out these grants for certain people to go to college. And they really are taking over the state. They really are. CNN has just hit a new low in propaganda. They're pushing the story that immigrations and customs enforcement officials doing their job should be compared to the Nazis during the Holocaust. That's what they're saying. It's insane. Ann Coulter is out there saying, you know, maybe it might be a good idea for California to secede. Let's just sell it back to Mexico and put up the border wall along Nevada and the bottom half of Oregon. The liberals are ripping this nation apart. We've been watching in Europe just with the refugees. And in this country, we're seeing elevated crime, elevated disease, illegal voting, massive illegal voting. And the Democrats are out there openly saying, yeah, we need the illegals to vote for us if we're going to hang on to power, if we're going to take Congress. It's illegal for these people to be here. It is illegal for them to be voting. And the Democrats are out there saying, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. They have a natural right to come here and basically swarm our nation. Up in Seattle, Washington, the mayor has a plan for free college. No U.S. citizenship or minimum grade point average required. The illegals are being treated better by the U.S. government than U.S. citizens. They're just pouring on in. Over in Chicago, Rahm Emanuel is giving them all ID cards that they can use to vote. When was the last time you went out to renew your driver's license? For those states that are now complying with the real ID, they put you through the ringer to prove that you're supposed to be here. All of a sudden, we're the enemy. We're the target. The illegals are welcome to just come and go as they please. And we, citizens who were actually born here, we just get the runaround trying to prove that we're here. You know, you have to have your birth certificate. You got to have a current passport. You got to have this. You got to have that. What about the illegal immigrants? Oh, no, we can't do that. That would be racist. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates just rejoining the network. Now, speaking of racist accusations, this is a horrible story. Over in Great Britain, the Sunday Mirror did an investigation and they uncovered Britain's worst ever grooming scandal, which saw authorities paralyzed and unwilling to do anything over fears of being accused of racism, as grooming gangs that have come on in with the refugees victimized up to 1,000 girls in Telford. Now, the Sunday Mirror claims its 18-month investigation found abuse on unprecedented levels, with 3 women being killed when abuser Azhar Ali Mahmood burned down their home with them inside, and 2 others dying in connection with the scandal. Social workers supposedly knew of what was going on. Girls as young as 11 were being targeted. It took 10 years for the police to even start to launch an investigation, and the authorities failed to keep tabs on these suspects. They didn't want to upset the Open Borders Project. They didn't want to be accused of racism. Now think about all those girls who have been traumatized and mentally scarred for life. This is the price of political correctness and the open borders and the liberal agenda. The problem with liberals is they're not dealing with the real world. They get a fantasy in their heads and they say, oh, wouldn't that be lovely? Let's just pretend that's the way things are going to be. Hillary's going to be in the White House. We can end microaggressions. We can stop human-caused global warming. We can have open borders and everybody will just go into each other's countries and hug and hug and hug. Well, that's not real world. And the liberals are out there just making all this mess. And we who do live in the real world, we're having to deal with that mess. We're having to clean up after them. Now, Chuck Baldwin Live has an article. This is the beginning of totalitarian government. And he's out there sounding the warning that Donald Trump appears to be caving in to the gun grabbers. And apparently this new omnibus spending bill has a lot of anti-gun provisions in there, including the Fix NICS bill, which has been a long-time goal of Schumer and Feinstein. Meanwhile, of course, the nation that's trying to figure out on gun violence is going to hold a military parade glorifying war. I guess the message is going to be, if you really want to play with guns, you got to sign up for the Army now. Now, a little bit of common sense up in Illinois. Rahm Emanuel proposed a gun bill, an even stricter gun control for Chicago, which has a very high murder rate and gun crime, because law-abiding citizens are being disarmed. But the Illinois governor vetoed it and says heavy regulations and bans are not working. They're not going to work. They've never worked. Again, this is another liberal fantasy. If we take all the guns away, we will live in peace. No, you won't. There are bad people out there. There are bad people who are going to find ways to commit violence. It's not that hard to smuggle a gun in from another country. Or if you know anything about machine tools and chemistry, you can make your own. If you're in a totally disarmed society, even a black powder gun allows you to go on out and start killing people. The only way you stop a bad person with a gun is a good person with the gun. And we need to honestly look at the link between prescription psychiatric medication and these mass shooters. And Trump may be right that these video games desensitize people to the consequences of mass violence. Along with movies like, we just saw John Wick 2 on cable. Wow, what a bloodfest that was. Now, I don't play computer games other than flight simulators. But if I had the time and inclination to play a computer game, I've seen the commercials for that Forge of Empires, where you're actually trying to build a civilization and build trade. And I imagine that would actually be very good training for somebody who wants to get into honest, legitimate, serve the people type government. Now, de Blasio has removed armed security from New York City schools, even as some of the gun grabbers nationwide are saying it's a good idea. So I don't know what de Blasio was thinking. Maybe the next staged mass shooting is going to be in New York. Those poor New Yorkers, they get all this stuff. Nikki Haley says the Russians are going to hit them with chemicals. They had the World Trade Tower explosion, then 9/11 itself. These deep staters ought to pick somebody else, sort of spread the misery around. Now, down at Parkland, they have finally released some video from the school's security system. Remember, we had Wolfgang Halbig on the show, and he designed that system. And he told us all about it, where it covered, where it was, that there was no 20-minute delay. That was just absolute total media bovine excrement. And they released 27 minutes of video. It's heavily edited, and even the article over at CNN says it illuminates little. It shows Scott Peterson outside, shows him riding around in a golf cart. It shows students running by with their faces pixelated, another angle of the golf cart, and the final shot, which takes up most of the video, 26 minutes, is just Peterson standing outside the building. No gunman has been shown in the video. Neither has the suspect, Cruz. Now, if Cruz was the shooter, even if he was dressed in black, and there was only one shooter, they would have released that. That's the part we're not getting. Even CNN is saying it's almost like, why did you bother? I mean, it does underscore that Scott Peterson basically failed to act. But there's nothing there. There's no there. Story coming out of Citizen Free Press. Apparently, there's been another embarrassment for the FBI. Apparently, the Florida Muslim teen who stabbed 3 people in a bloody rampage had been under investigation by the FBI. He'd been the focus of an FBI bulletin due to reports about his violent tendencies. He'd converted to Islam, he watched violent videos online, and admitted the stabbings were due to his religious beliefs. They had an opportunity to intervene with this guy, and they did not. Okay, so surveilling the population isn't working. Disarming the population isn't working. Shut down the NSA and all this other spying on the American people and give us guns. And I guarantee you the problems are going to go away. Because everything the government is doing is totally wrong. It doesn't do what they promise it'll do. The gun grabbers are always out there saying, surrender your guns, the police will protect you. Parkland proved exactly the opposite. Scott Peterson and 3 other deputy sheriffs stayed outside. The Coral Beach police were ordered to remain outside. We've had 2 more school scares today. Apparently, a suspicious person was spied at the Millennium Middle School in Tamarack, Florida. Said he might be armed. They put the school under lockdown. The police went in, couldn't find anybody. What they did find is an airsoft gun on the school's playground. An airsoft gun is a little tiny pellet gun. They're harmless. They're good for training with. In fact, over at Parkland, the junior ROTC was using airsoft guns to drill with. If you look at the photo they show of Nicholas Cruz holding a gun, that red tip, it's an airsoft pellet gun. They're not dangerous unless you shoot somebody in the eye. Now, out in Cedar City, Utah, middle school was locked down from reports of a person carrying a gun nearby. So they locked that school down, and police didn't find anybody matching the caller's description. And the man told officers he might have kind of like maybe overreacted. So the lockdown was lifted after half an hour. We have to be careful of the hysteria. There's a lot of it out there. Now, getting into human-caused global warming, believe it or not, there is a 4th nor'easter storm on the way. And they're actually saying it's actually 2 separate storms very close together. Going to be nasty. Apparently, they've had freezing temperatures down in Florida. Gosh darn that, human-caused global warming. Now, we have been talking about the beast from the east. It's a major storm. It's expected to hit Great Britain next week and basically cover the entire country in snow. Here's the problem. Because of the already cold winter, British natural gas reserves are at record low. In fact, that's true all over Europe because of this record cold winter. Natural gas supplies are low. They are actually, unfortunately, being dependent on the Russian natural gas coming through those pipelines. So this is not a good time for Theresa May to annoy the Russians, because they've already shut off that valve to Ukraine. Need to really think these things through. All right, we sort of knew this was going to be happening. This is from 12160. FBI establishes a task force to target alternative media. And the FBI is apparently throwing its weight behind the campaign to discredit independent media as peddlers of Russian influence and disinformation. This is a new McCarthyism. I mean, they already tried it once. The Washington Post came on out and had a list of websites that were arms of Russian propaganda, including, I'm proud to say, whatreallyhappened.com. Now, I'm not an arm of Russian propaganda. I'm simply reporting the facts as I see them. I don't work for anybody except you. If I'm an arm of Russian propaganda, I'm owed some serious, serious back pay. But apparently the FBI is going to establish a task force to alert U.S. companies and the public about efforts by Russia and other nations to use disinformation and social media manipulation to interfere in upcoming elections, while being careful not to upset free speech and constitutional rights. This was a quote in Bloomberg. Well, no, you can't come on out and attack the independent media and still claim that you're upholding free speech and constitutional rights. The two are mutually exclusive. Basically, the FBI is going to go after what it considers purveyors of thought crime. For you, all of you George Orwell fans, that means any news source or social media post critical of the status quo and its rigged elections and its corrupt political class. We're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be back after these few words.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Most basic diseases are caused by yeast in the gut and metals in the liver, and we all have a bit of both. The garlic in Extendivite has a yeast-killing effect in the gut while also helping the sulfur enzyme in the liver get rid of the metals. Extendivite just may improve your overall health. Products like Extendivite are the only way we are going to get our society healthy. And if you're waiting for the government and pharmaceutical care to solve your health problems, you're going to have a long, disappointing wait, I think. Extendivite is a complete formula for extended life in the new millennium. 80 can be the new 60. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
For the past 14 years, it's been my privilege to host the National Intel Report on RBN, to offer a platform to interview exceptional guests, to provoke critical thought, and examine evidence, whether real, fake, or somewhere in between, and allow our audience to call in and participate with your input and questions in order to help us all reach an educated decision and arrive at our own truth. Our world has changed. It's now been turned on its head. Real is now considered fake, and mainstream fake is now pushed as real, rather than any clear thinking, consensus, or rationale.
Those few remaining beacons of light, the ones still shining through the mainstream media lies, propaganda, and deception, are being viciously attacked at every level through attempts at censorship, threatening advertisers, jailing hosts, and even killing journalists brave enough to speak the truth to you. We are in a war for our very freedom and existence, and through these despicable acts, freedom haters, collectivists, and communitarians have shown that they will stop at nothing to blot out these last few beacons of light. Truth is becoming increasingly more difficult to unmask, just as the term unmasking itself is spoken by those usually anonymous sources. They promote their lies, wishing to mask the truths by ignoring it, vilifying it, or conspiratorializing it into a black hole abyss.
Regrettably, RBN has reached the tipping point, and through internal audit and actuarial review, it has now been determined that the only life raft of survival to this network is to go the way of PBS, that being audience-supported. Like a cornered animal, the left with veracity is pulling out all the stops with every effort to effectively blacken our beacon forever. Help us, folks. Help yourselves. Don't let our light stop shining. Our motto has always been, because you can handle the truth. It's time to review your budget, folks. If you want the truth to keep flowing through RBN, go to republicbroadcasting.org and become a regular monthly donor of $30, $40, $50, or $100 or more a month and ensure you keep the truth flowing.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something, by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. Now, the U.S. is once again accusing Russia of cyber attacks. There's absolutely no evidence of it, and as any security professional is going to tell you, it's impossible to track where a cyber attack comes from. Maybe the last server in a long chain of cutouts was located in Russia, or the code has been made to look like something Russia would do. And remember, the NSA has one unit whose specialty is writing cyber warfare tools that look like they come from other countries. So the U.S. has thrown more sanctions at Russia. Among those sanctioned is Yevgeny Prigozhin. He's a Russian caterer known as Putin's chef. Now, this guy cooks for a living, presumably very well. And he's not involved with computers. Why are they sanctioning him? Well, because he's a friend of Putin. This is just another poke at Russia. That's the strategy. They're going to go on trying to poke at Russia until Russia does something that can be seized on as the initiating event in the coming war. That's what's going on. Now, yesterday, YouTube came on out with an announcement that they were going to partner with Wikipedia in order to decide what videos and stories, what videos ought to be deleted from their platform, because they want to get rid of conspiracy theories, and nothing's more reliable than Wikipedia. Well, Wikipedia has been discredited a long time ago. And the problem with Wikipedia is anybody can edit the site. That sounded like a really good idea when it first started, but the reality is there's a lot of outright propaganda on Wikipedia. At one time, I had an article about me, and somebody edited it to basically, well, they made a lot of accusations that were completely outrageous and false. So I went back in and I corrected it. The next day, the allegations were back again, and when I went to edit it, it was locked on the excuse that Wikipedia didn't think that Michael Rivero was an authority on Michael Rivero. I mean, that's how silly it was. And then they basically pulled the article, along with the one about whatreallyhappened.com. Apparently, there's a snag. Wikipedia hadn't been asked about this, and they're not sure that they're ready to hook up. I got an email from somebody saying, YouTube has gone crazy. Your video was almost done. You can see from the image, but YouTube says we can't process it. And he sent me a screen capture. It's a YouTube video. I'm recording it on YouTube, and YouTube apparently is now blocking some of the videos from the archive, saying it can't be processed. I mean, that is pretty darn silly. But again, the censorship is out there, and I'm surprised they haven't just killed this channel outright. Now, the Federal Elections Commission is introducing a proposal to change the requirements for digital political advertising. They basically want to amend the current regulations, change the rules regarding disclaimers, and they want to change the agency's definition of a public communication. Now, they're saying the proposals are intended to give the American public easy access to information about the persons paying for and the candidates authorizing these internet communications. I think that's a good idea. There was a lot of junk being poured on out in social media from cutout sources, anonymous sources. I think it would be a very good thing that any content of a political nature, the person paying for it and whoever authorized it should be there, so we can follow that path of mendacity back to its absolute source. Microsoft has had yet another problem with one of their patches. Apparently, they were trying to secure servers, Windows Server 2008 R2 running VMware, and the latest patch basically shut them down. It disconnected them, and the servers were offline. Administrators were scrambling to recover the IP addresses, and apparently the problem appears to affect machines configured with static IP addresses rather than the ones assigned from the nearby router. And sometimes for special hardware you need static IP. So it's amazing. Amazon is having problems with their power packs. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Division has issued a recall notice for 6 types of lithium-ion battery packs sold by Amazon Basics. Apparently, they have a bad habit of exploding and into flames and splashing everybody around them with chemical burns. Now, I understand there's a new type of lithium battery that's been developed that gets away from these problems. And hopefully it will get to marketplace real quick. We've got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with a phone call after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com. Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did. The towers in...
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And apparently there's a congressional hearing where they're putting out this idea that if Russia doesn't like all the sanctions they're being hit with, that they could hack into the power stations here in the United States and shut the power grid down. Now, again, the computer controls for critical infrastructure, nuclear reactors, power stations, things like that, do not connect to the internet. But that's the story they're selling. So it looks like another false flag they're considering is multiple blackouts in major cities and blame Russia for it to get the war going. And we talked about this. I wrote an article a couple of years ago, a virtual 9/11, where the next big war-starting false flag would happen somewhere in cyberspace. And here they are talking about it. Russia will shut down our power grid. The power grid is not plugged into the internet. That's a basic security system. Iran's uranium centrifuges weren't plugged into the grid. That's why the Mossad had to go on in there and infect it with a flash drive. So again, they're just pushing this. So unfortunately, if you live in a major city, if you're not prepared to deal with an extended electrical blackout, you'd better start preparing now. lights, batteries, water, maybe an emergency generator if you've got the room for one, because that seems to be the story they're pushing now. Because they didn't get traction over the dead Russian spy. Okay, I know we got a caller waiting, but I want to do an update on the Florida International University Bridge. During the commercial breaks, I was looking at photos of the bridge, and I didn't see any indication of any blue-colored equipment debris on it, or in fact, any weights being put on it. So I don't know where that story came from. But according to the Miami Herald, the bridge was undergoing a tension test at the time. And this bridge is basically cable supported. Now, the cables are not outside. They're basically inside. They're doing the same thing with the tracks on the light rail project. And what that is after the concrete, as the concrete is poured, it surrounds these large cables or rods that are bent as a shallow V. And then when the cement is dry, they screw the nuts onto the rods and they tension it, which basically puts an upward force at the center of the span. And apparently, they were doing some adjusting on the tension lines on the bridge. And I know that when those things snap, they really cause a mess, because a couple of years ago, I was driving on the H1 in Honolulu, and one of those tension lines just popped up through the roadway. Made a heck of a noise and a mess. All right, now we're going to take a phone call. Francis in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, aloha to you both.
Aloha.
Hey, as far as that lameness about, Russia's going to do this to the power systems here in the U.S. and so forth, how lame can you get, first off?
Yep.
As for to the people in Russia, здравствуйте. 3, as far as the thought crime deal goes and all that, I'm reminded of a film called Minority Report.
Yes.
In which supposedly people are arrested beforehand before they ever commit a murder.
Yes.
Which is actually hypocritical. And that being because it is a crime to commit a murder, and they arrest you before you ever do it. But it's perfectly legitimately fine if you commit adultery. So you can go ahead and get married and commit adultery, and that's no problem. But going and committing a future crime and taking someone's life, that's a taboo. So as much as it's a really high-tech science fiction type scenario, it's really ethically lame.
It is ethically lame, and I think that was the whole point of the film, was that the system was arresting and imprisoning people who hadn't actually done anything wrong. And certainly, I think if somebody really had that kind of a system where you could predict criminal behavior, you would intervene to prevent it, but you don't need to lock the person up. You basically are just sending the message, we're going to get to you. We're going to stop you from committing crimes, so don't commit any more crimes. And I know that there are a lot of people who are saying they're getting close to that ability to predict who's going to commit crimes, but obviously no. Look at that FBI mess up with the Parkland shooter. He was on their radar. They didn't know it was going to happen. That Muslim who stabbed 3 people, the FBI had a bulletin out on him. They didn't know what he was going to do.
Either that, or they knew what that these parties were going to do and just simply allowed it to happen.
That's the other theory as well. Or they simply set up Nicholas Cruz to be the patsy based on his past history of violence, and the actual shootings inside the school were done with these 3 guys dressed in the black outfits.
Bingo.
Okay.
Y'all have a great one.
All right,
Later.
Thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. Apparently, a U.S. Army Chinook helicopter has crashed on the Syria-Iraq border. And those things are big. We see them flying over our house training flights all the time. It wasn't all that long ago that 2 of the big Sikorskys vanished out off the North Shore. Nobody even knows what happened. Or maybe they do and they just don't want to say. All right, getting on back here to the science and health news. You're going to love this one. This is from Waking Times. And it basically is talking about there's been this investigation at Harvard University that confirms doctors have been paid huge sums of money to prescribe addictive opioids. Now, back in 2010, it was found that roughly 100,000 Americans die each year from prescription drugs alone. When it comes to opioids, the number of deaths is in the tens of thousands, while a quarter of patients who were given short-term prescriptions got hooked and transitioned to long-term use. So, according to this recent Harvard University analysis, doctors who prescribe these painkillers are being paid huge sums of money from their manufacturers. Now, the research, which was conducted by Harvard scientists and CNN, discovered that in 2014 through 2015, thousands of doctors were paid over $25,000 from opioid manufacturers, and hundreds more were rewarded with six-figure sums. The more opioids that were prescribed, the larger the reward. These doctors were being bribed to basically sell these narcotics and get people hooked, to turn them into a permanent revenue stream for the pharmaceutical companies. Now, this Harvard analysis found that the 5% of doctors who prescribed opioids at a volume that was higher than that of the average physician were paid twice as much money from the manufacturers. Doctors in the top 1% were paid 4 times as much. It was all about the money. All about the money. Now, if you are a bottled water fan, and for those of you on YouTube, you can see that's obviously the case, I'm going to have to get out my microscope because according to this article, apparently top bottled water brands are contaminated with plastic particles. All of a sudden, there's a growing awareness of the problem of plastics in the environment. Not the big things like the can carriers that wildlife gets trapped in, which is a problem, but apparently this prevalence of microscopic particles, almost nanoparticles of these plastic that are just seeping in to everything. Now, we buy bottled water because we assume it's healthier for us than the tap water. I actually buy this because it's alkaline. But apparently, widespread contamination with plastic was found. This is coming from researcher Sherry Mason of the State University of New York at Fredonia, according to a summary released by Orb Media, a U.S.-based nonprofit media collective. Researchers tested 250 bottles of water in Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, Kenya, Lebanon, Mexico, Thailand, and the United States. Plastic was found in 93% of the samples, which included major name brands such as Aquafina, Dasani, Evian, Nestle Pure Life, and San Pellegrino. The plastic debris included nylon, polyethylene terephthalate, and polypropylene, which is used to make bottle caps. So apparently some of the contamination is coming from plastic sloughed off during the mechanical attachment of the bottle cap, the screw top. Now, we need to look into those chemicals to see if they just pass through the body harmlessly or if they accumulate. We don't know yet. Microplastics have been found to accumulate in sea life. Boy, the corporations have just really messed up this planet. And they're trying to insist it's because of us and our plastic bags. Now, over in Oklahoma, they're revamping their method of execution. As you know, when the U.S. moved to lethal injection, the companies that make the required drugs are in other countries, and these other countries did not like what the drugs are being used for. And so many of these countries and companies have now basically banned the sale of these drugs to the United States. These are countries that don't believe in capital punishment. And so what Oklahoma is getting ready to do is basically execute people with nitrogen hypoxia. In other words, they're going to clamp a mask onto the face of the prisoner and feed in pure nitrogen, and he will just get dizzy, pass out, and die. And I talked about this before when we were talking about liquid nitrogen in another context, how dangerous it can actually be. Because the way your body works, okay, for some reason, your breathing rate depends on how much carbon dioxide there is in your blood, not how much oxygen. If you are able to get rid of carbon dioxide, your body believes it's in good shape. And the leading cause of death in laboratory accidents is a spill of liquid nitrogen, because it will boil off and it will fill the room and drive the oxygen out. And people who are in the room are still breathing and they're still feeling comfortable and not realizing that they're going to just pass out in a couple of seconds. So it's actually an idea that's going to work if you support capital punishment, and I don't. And the reason I don't is very simple. We know our system is corrupt. It makes mistakes. We know innocent people get executed. And until we can restore life to those it has wrongfully been taken from, we should not take it in the first place. So, yes, I'm opposed to capital punishment. Over in the Caribbean, we were talking just the other day about how the earth is... Oh, no, we got a phone call. Let's take a phone call. Chris in St. Petersburg, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
The topic you mentioned, Michael, about the water, the plastics in the water, and
Yes.
one big way that the plastics, the chemicals leach from the plastics in water, is that the water is acidic itself. Pure water is slightly acidic at about 6.5 pH.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good for buying alkaline water, but the thing that the problem with it is that it's not alkaline often by the time you get it, because with a pH meter you can test that after about a week it returns back to about 6.5 to 7 if it's pure water, unless it does have minerals in it, alkalinizing minerals. And it
Yes,
should say
it
if
does. Yes, it does.
Oh, good. Now, a lot of these alkaline waters are sold. It says that's 8.5 pH, 9.5 pH. At time of bottling is in small print underneath that. So what they do is they, like I have a water ionizer that can make highly alkaline water anywhere up to 11.5 pH. But after about a week, it goes back down to set neutral or slightly acidic even. So that's why they say at time of bottling in really fine print. And, so I guess baking soda seems about the least expensive way to keep it alkaline. But any food or water, any liquid that's acidic is going to leach from plastics or metals, packaging. So, like foil. So that's very important to know. I take, for my water, I take purified water from one of these inexpensive water dispensers that tests at 1 or 2 parts per million dissolved solid, so it's nearly pure, and it's only 20 cents a gallon. And then I take that and I add some minerals to it before I hand pump it through my water ionizer, because pure water is a very poor conductor of electricity. It gets very poorly ionized if I try to just pump pure water.
When I'm making nanosilver, I literally start with some older nanosilver to get that conductivity up. If I'm starting from pure distilled water, it can take hours and hours and hours to make this. I assume that you can hear me, right? Because I'm getting a notice from Twitch that it's lost the internet connection and I can't clear the warning on it. So I guess it's just a mistake with Twitch, because we're still in connection. And we're still going strong here. Anyway, listen, thank you very much for the phone call. Chris, we're going to let you go. And we're going to close the phone lines for the rest of the show because of this weirdness that's going on with Twitch here. The other day we were talking about how there seems to be an increased amount of geological activity going on around the world. They're rocking and rolling over by Mount Vesuvius. They're having that big volcano over in Japan. And now apparently in the Caribbean, there is an underwater volcano that has started erupting, and what they're seeing on the surface, of course, are bubbles and bits of pumice, and the government has basically declared a 5-kilometer exclusion zone, basically saying you got to stay away from it because this thing could get explosive, and you have to be safe. Okay, so anyway, this is a weird story. This is a very, very bizarre story, but I'm going to leave it until after we come back from our next commercial break, because I want to get into it a little bit in terms of some of the ramifications. I think are a little bit upsetting. So we'll be back after these words from our sponsors with the final segment of our today's program. We'll be right back.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MiGrelief migraine formula. MiGrelief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MiGrelief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354, or visit MIG911.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to the final segment of our program today. There's a story out of PJ Media, and basically there is a psychologist, David Barash, and he's writing a book, about to publish it, and he's saying society should sanction the making of human-chimp hybrids. And he wants to call this new creature a human Z. And he says making it would be a terrific idea. Well, it's certainly technically possible. roughly 99% of the DNA is identical between humans and chimpanzees. That's how close we are. Most of it dealing with biochemistry. It's that 1% where it gets kind of tricky. Now, what we'd be doing is creating a new subhuman class of sentient life. They would be the Eloi to our Morlocks. Or you're going to create a new form of life that, like the animals in a zoo, has to be cared for. I don't see what this gentleman thinks these are going to be useful for. If he's planning on adding to the workforce, we already have way too many people out of work. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has confirmed we have 90 million Americans, legal American citizens, willing and able to work, who can't find a job. Pouring in the illegal immigrants is making it worse. Pouring in the refugees is making it worse. And coming up with these humansies is going to make it worse. They could make a mistake with this. I still hold that genetic technology is the most dangerous toy humans have ever played with. It's far more dangerous than nuclear technology. And look how bad nuclear technology has worked on out. Anyway, the students are out there marching. The gun grabbers are trying to exploit these kids to tear at our heartstrings. Oh, it's for the children. The children want the guns gone. I love this one comment. A protest student came on out and said, you know, if you shoot a deer with an AR-15, it'll explode. Actually said that. No, a deer will not explode if you shoot it with an AR-15. It basically tells us these students don't know what they're talking about. They don't have a clue. This guy's idea of what guns do is based on movies and televisions. Deer won't explode. You'd need a cannon. You would need actual artillery to get the deer to explode when shot. Anyway, apparently, in another setback for the global warming cult, the Amazon rainforest trees are found to be surprisingly drought resistant. They're not all dying off from the reduction of water caused by human-caused global warming here. And this one comes under the category of, for every credibility gap, there's a gullibility fill. Billionaire Sam Altman and 25 others just paid $10,000 for a company called Nectcom to upload their brain consciousness for immortality. Talk about a scam. We still don't know how the brain works, let alone able to record it. And apparently Twitter is now censoring the Drudge Report. The scorched earth war goes on. All right, there's the music. Time for me to get out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots and lots of wonderful things to share with you. Please take what you learn here, what you learn at the websites, what you learn at all the independent media. Keep getting it out there to the public. This literally is a war between the government, the corporate media, and those of us who want freedom, justice, and the restoration of the republic. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.